All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, down there in Tequila, Georgia. My good friend, fellow University of North Georgia alumni, Matt Green, is here. Matt, good evening, sir. Good evening, enemy. Good evening, tyrant. Good evening, red and black bastard. How are you, sir?
Good evening, sir. This is what we've been waiting on. This is what this podcast was built for. You know, Georgia's been playing at a nationally elite level roughly the whole time been doing this podcast. But I'm glad that Tennessee finally decided to they'd want to be a true everything school and include football along with those sports. So yeah, it's this is going to be an exciting one. We've been waiting on this one for a few weeks now.
I mean, Georgia fans have to soak this in. We're in November. You've got about November to December, December to January, and then you got a full 9-month just kind of hibernation. You're the grizzly bears of the college sports world, where y'all get to enjoy the reign of supremacy in college football. But then you put so many resources and so many eyeballs and so much care into that one sport that it doesn't transfer into the other sports that go on throughout the rest of the year. Which, look, I hope you're taking every moment. I hope every Georgia fan is taking and enjoying this ride, because once that calendar flips to 2023, we know Georgia fans disappear for the rest of the year until the end of summertime. So while the other schools, we take every sport seriously and we contend in every single sport here on Rocky Top, other schools like yourself, this is y'all's Super Bowl. Our Super Bowl is every day here in East Tennessee. The Super Bowl is every day.
Super Bowl, get out of here. Tennessee fans would trade every single bit of baseball and basketball success for a national title in football. Let's just get out of here. It's nice to have the good baseball team and a good basketball team. Also, what are we celebrating? What, second round of the tournament? Is that what we're celebrating these days? Is that success in basketball? Can't make a Final Four? What is this?
Number one, look, KenPom preseason top 4. You heard Tom Izzo this week saying that Rick Barnes' team looks like a Final Four team to him. They scrimmaged the Spartans a few weeks ago. Tennessee baseball's better than ever. The best trio rotation with Chase Delander, Chase Burns. Look, everything comes up Chase on Rocky Top. You know this. And Drew Beam. So, every weekend's great here in the fall. Love Tennessee football being an everything school and being not only the best football program in the country, inching towards being the best basketball program, and we already know the best baseball program in the country. It's just it's nice to be able to just enjoy the full year, knowing that every
best baseball program in the country didn't Ole Miss, I think, won the national championship?
People forget. Matt Green, we have some stuff to talk about before we even do our pick 'em. We had the college football playoff rankings came out. I seem to recall a certain host on this very program say definitively there was no chance that Tennessee would not be number one in the first rankings done by the committee. Matt Green, you did not think so. And your Georgia Bulldogs, look, I am saying rest in peace. Many people in college football are saying rest in peace as the number 3 in the CFP first rankings. No team has ever made the college football playoff when ranked number 3 in the first rankings. The Dogs look to be the first ones to break out of that. So history is against them. America is against them this Saturday. Just a lot going on for your Dogs. A lot of pressure for Kirby and folks. So much pressure, in fact, that there are Georgia fans getting upset about folks calling them out that Sanford Stadium, not the raucous, scary atmosphere that a lot of folks around.
Tennessee's making some big mistakes this week. The college football rankings are not their fault. That's rat poison delivered by the College Football Playoff Committee. But yeah, Eric Ainge coming out saying that Sanford Stadium isn't that loud. In Eric Ainge's defense, he played in Athens in 2004 and 2006, and honestly, I don't think Sanford Stadium was that loud of a stadium in the early 2000s. But since Kirby took over Georgia, it's a different atmosphere completely, honestly. So I just feel like the number one ranking is just that's probably the best thing Kirby Smart could have asked for this week, right? Like he just he'll use that to motivate his team all week, but not as if they need it for this game. But looking at the rankings, I mean, I'm not going to argue that Tennessee has the best resume of all the teams out there. I think I've heard a lot of people just talking about like, oh, this is just made for TV drama or whatever. But I disagree with that because if this were made for TV drama, the Georgia Tennessee ranking is completely inconsequential. Like it doesn't matter at all. Like they're going to play literally 4 days from when you made that ranking. Why is Georgia not number one and Tennessee number two? For one, like let's promote this title fight. Like the team that just won the championship be number one, the number one contender coming in. Like I feel like that's the storyline. That's like the poetic justice. Like Tennessee can prove this week, like having an amazing season. They can prove this week if they're truly number one. So I don't know. It's interesting. Like I'm not going to say that Georgia has a better resume than Tennessee. However, what would you rather? What's better, a 3-point win at home over number 6, or a 46-point win at a neutral site over number 8? And then another one, what's better, a 5-point win over Florida at home or a 22-point win over Florida at a neutral site? Those Alabama, I know no one thinks Alabama or Oregon is as good as Alabama, but right now Alabama's the number 6 team in the country, and it's debatable they should be 6. Honestly, I would put TCU at 6 ahead of Alabama
I know
right
that's
now.
not Matthew W. Green making the case that Oregon is on the same playing field as Alabama on a neutral site. I know that's not what I'm hearing on this podcast right now, Matt.
Well,
I know you're not going down this road.
For one, Alabama was on the road with Tennessee, so that's an advantage for Tennessee. But
yeah,
no, I'm not suggesting that Oregon is as good as Alabama. I would bet on Alabama every day of the week if they're playing. I mean, but you look at the teams, what they actually have been this year, and it's not that different. Like outside of the one game versus Georgia, Oregon's averaging 48 points a game. Like they're like one of the best offenses in the country. So, but going back to the rankings, like I just don't understand what you can do to justify TCU being behind Alabama. Like for one, just as the committee, like you're probably sitting there in the room, like yeah, TCU is probably going to lose anyway at some point. They're not going to go undefeated. Like they could. No one thought they were going to start 8-0 either, but they're probably not going to go undefeated. They should be ahead of a one-loss Alabama to this point. Like what has Alabama proven? Like yeah, their best performance is a 3-point loss in a super rowdy environment in Knoxville. Like what's their best win? Like Texas A&M is not a good team. Even Texas, like without Ewers, like a 1-point win at Texas, like that, I would definitely say at Texas is their best win. But it's like a 1-point win over a team that's also lost 2 more Big 12 games. Like lost to Texas Tech, lost to who else? I'm forgetting.
Oklahoma
State. Yeah, so it's like that's their best win, where TCU has beaten Oklahoma State. They've beaten Kansas State. They're undefeated. Like, I just don't understand how you can justify. And Clemson's resume is not as impressive as TCU's either. I would definitely have TCU at 5 instead of 7 right now. And especially Clemson ahead of Michigan. Like, I guess Michigan's going to be the team that gets punished for their out of conference schedule. Like, who else are these other teams playing out of conference? Like there's plenty of teams.
Well, Michigan, I think, has had the easiest of anyone going through. I forgot someone tweeted like the kind of strength of schedule rankings, and basically like teams, and the average team had an 8% chance of going 8-0 on Tennessee's schedule, and then they go through it of like all the different 8-0s and like what the chances are of an average team doing it. And I think Michigan was like 64%. I think they were the easiest path to going 8-0 to this point. I think that's part of what docked him, but I agree with you that I think I would have definitely flipped Clemson and Michigan. I would have put Clemson behind Alabama. Like, who's actually believing in Clemson to this point over what we've seen from Alabama? I would put them behind TCU. Like, you could make the case that Clemson's like should belong somewhere like 7. I also wouldn't have put Ohio State ahead of Georgia to this point. I would have had Georgia 2, Tennessee 1. I mean, I told you on the pod, I would have had Alabama 3. I think people have gone too far, but I understand with the loss, you can't do it. But if their only loss is to right now the college football playoff number 1, then what are we doing? I think we just overcalculate or over penalized Alabama losing by 3 on the road at Neyland in an all-time game, and that's it. Because I think if they had not lost that game and they had won 52-49, I think Alabama is sitting at 1, which makes me question like the whole logic here. It's like if their only loss is a 3-point road loss to your number 1, I don't know how you don't put them in the top 4. I don't know how they don't sit there.
No, that's fair, but it's just like that's just not how our college football system works, right? The rest of these teams are unbeaten, and it's not just 4-0, 5-0. Like you're 8-0 at this point. Like that's nothing to just kind of turn
Well, I
your
think the
nose up
playoff
at.
has the reason I think they should be more bold is I think the playoff committee has the opportunity because they're not beholden to the traditional of like, oh, well, this is why you play the games. You can't penalize people for playing their schedule and this, that, and the other. That's why I think the AP poll is important. Is you reward the people who play what's in front of them, the TCUs, the Michigans. It's like, hey, they're taking care of business, even their strength of schedule. It's like whatever. That's just the way it is. So you don't put Alabama in front of them there. But the playoff should factor in based on what we've seen from past playoff games from Alabama teams, from what we've seen in Bryce Young in the past, what we've seen from Nick Saban. Like, I think they should actually factor in so many more off the field stuff or just past performance and things like that they
See,
should be
but
brave. Like, even a 2-loss.
no,
Yeah.
see, I disagree because that's
Mm.
already going to be there in your subconscious. Like you're already going to be biased towards, oh, I know this guy was a 5-star recruit. He was a Heisman winner. Nick Saban's a great coach. Like that's going into the how you feel about this team already. But like what have they done to prove that they should be ahead of an unbeaten team in a Power 5 conference? Like I don't really get that. Like I understand that they are a good team,
Well, let
but it's
me
like the
ask you this, Matt
rankings
Green.
shouldn't work one way and then the playoff rankings work another way. Like we all understand how the rankings have traditionally worked in football. Like this isn't like Vegas. Like, yeah, if this was Vegas making the odds, Alabama would lose. I mean, they'd still be number 1 because they'd be favored ahead of Tennessee on a neutral site right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, Tennessee's win versus Alabama just doesn't matter at that point. So it's like you can't just go
Well,
with a
hold on.
straight up
Actually,
power
when you said
ranking
that,
model.
I'm not certain that they would be favored on a neutral site against
I think I heard
Tennessee.
earlier this week that they were. I'm not sure who said that, so I'm not 100% on that. But it's because Vegas is also factoring in how the public is going to vote or
Yeah.
how is going to bet. So it's like Alabama is just ingrained in everybody's brain as the elite of elite in college football, and so your best bet is probably to be on Alabama. Like most times, they usually win, but right now it's like that's not how the actual playoff ranking is supposed to work. It's this combination of how good you are versus the resume versus the whatever like you've proven. It's obviously it's an inexact science, but if you're just going by resume, if you're just like it's I don't know, it's difficult. If you're just going by resume, like Michigan's got a terrible resume, but we've all watched them play, and Michigan looks like an elite team in college football. Like
Mm.
Michigan's probably below all of these teams that are going on straight resume, but it's not just straight resume. Like Georgia's resume probably isn't as good as TCU's, but Georgia's looked like a better team more times than not. They're giving up 10 points a game. They're scoring like 43 points a game. Like they've looked like a more dominant team than TCU, even if their second best win is over maybe Florida or at South Carolina by 40 some points or Auburn at home. Like not a great resume, but they have looked dominant. So it's clearly the committee had no problem putting Georgia ahead of a couple of teams that even Clemson's resume might be better than Georgia's. So it's just a very inconsistent logic. Sometimes the resume matters, sometimes the eye test matters, and it's difficult. I just wish for the purpose of just like I said, poetic justice. Like Tennessee should be 2 right now. Georgia should be 1. And we should set up this heavyweight matchup. Like let them prove on the field
Hold
that
on.
they're the
I
number
thought you
1
liked the
team.
rat poison. Make up your mind, Matt Green. Are they happy that they're number 3 or are they not?
No, I'm sure Kirby Smart is happy that they're number 3.
But are you happy? Are fans wanting this? They're like, perfect. Now we
I
can.
mean, I don't really care at all. Like literally, it's not even worth a conversation because it's going to be decided in like 2 days, right? So it's not even worth being mad or happy about. But I would think normally in a scenario like this, where a team is 8-0, winning their games by 30 points a game, and they're the defending national champions, I would think normally that team is probably still number one, especially their one top 10 win. They beat a team by almost 50 points. So it's, I don't know. I don't have a problem with it because I get Tennessee's resume, but I don't know, Ohio State and Georgia. Like once you start talking about Ohio State's resume, like how impressive is it really? Like the Penn State win was what established them. Like, oh yeah, they are dominant. Like that's what the chairman or whatever said. Like, oh, that was the big win. It's like the game where they like were losing going into the fourth quarter. Like that's probably one of their worst performances all year, even though it's the best team they've played. So dominant fourth quarter and they pulled away, but I don't know. I don't really. There's some inconsistent logic with the committee, but like it'll all work itself out. But I feel like the reason, because it will all work itself out, that's why I feel like you should have rewarded teams what they've done to this point, like a TCU, and they should be at lowest like fifth right now, in my opinion.
That's fair. The last thing I'll say on it, by the way, would you like to guess how many times when the college football playoff to this point has featured two SEC teams, the final did not feature two SEC teams as well?
Sorry, say that. What are you saying? When the first rankings had multiple
No.
SEC
So
teams?
the final four. So the final four teams that made the college football playoff since its inception. How many times when there have been two SEC teams that made it, did the final two teams not include two SEC teams?
I don't even know.
0. So basically, the only two times it's happened that two SEC teams made the college football playoff, that was the final, was an SEC versus SEC match. And it was the same two. Georgia and Alabama were the same two both times. I think that's interesting. I was going through it because I think we're going to get two SEC teams again this year. I don't see the path to one SEC team getting in. And that's never happened. They've never gone back-to-back two SEC teams in the college football playoff. It hasn't happened yet. That being said, it's a good bet to bet on the two SEC teams to make it to the final because they're not going to have them face each other in the first round. That's just, they're splitting them up, and then those two teams just beat up on either Michigan or Ohio State, and then Clemson and or like a Notre Dame.
So you're saying you don't see the path to only one SEC team making it?
No.
I think that, I don't know about
things have to go really awry with the big three.
See, I think there's some help is needed to have two SEC teams because I look at it right now, like if Tennessee's number one, like Tennessee running the table and winning the conference, that's only one SEC team is getting in at that point.
You don't think a one-loss Georgia who misses the playoff or misses the SEC title game, and their only loss is to the number one overall seed, doesn't get in?
It just all depends. I think the Big Ten champion's getting in. I think Clemson is going undefeated. I think that's two spots right there. If the Big 12 champion is undefeated, the Big 12 champion's getting in. Like, also, if Michigan loses to Ohio State,
the current Big 10 number 6, the current Big 10 school or Big 12, school is sitting at number 6. Who are they climbing? Who are they jumping?
But I mean, if Georgia loses,
that's one loss. I don't know if they're gonna.
I mean, I don't think
who's TCU right now is behind Alabama, correct?
They are. But Alabama will have a second loss if they lose to Tennessee. But if like Georgia will have, like who's Georgia's best win at that point? If Georgia runs the table or loses Tennessee and wins the rest of the way, it's like Mississippi State, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Like obviously Oregon, they have that win still going for them. That's the one thing Georgia has. Is I think the Pac-12 champion has a legit shot if they can be a one-loss champ. I mean, what do we have? 4 of like the top 13 right now in the Pac-12 in the rankings. Like
they cannibalize each other, man. We know Utah and their 2 losses are winning this thing and ruining it for everybody. Like that's not happening.
Possible, but Oregon and UCLA, I feel like they both have and USC has the name brand. I just don't feel like USC necessarily has the resume right now, but they do have the name brand, and if they win out and beat Oregon, that's obviously going to go a long way. So it's the fact that it's going to be impossible for Oregon to jump Georgia near the end really hurts the Pac-12. But I mean, I think if Georgia beats Tennessee, obviously Tennessee has a lot of that win over Alabama, and then say Georgia, if Alabama wins the conference at that point,
Tennessee's out.
Get in.
Yeah, it'd be Georgia and Alabama getting in. It'd be the same as last year.
Yeah. See, I guess I could see that happening.
That's what I'm saying. I think the big three, basically the path for Tennessee, I think it's going to unfold this way. Tennessee loses, and then Georgia runs the gauntlet. Tennessee and Georgia are in, no question. They're both in. If they both take care of business the rest of the way. if Tennessee wins on Saturday and Georgia, that's their own loss, and then Tennessee runs the gauntlet and they beat Alabama again, I think Tennessee and Georgia get in. Where things get weird is if Tennessee beats Georgia and then gets beat by Alabama in the SEC title game. Then you have a one-loss Georgia team who missed, and then you have Tennessee whose one loss is the second game of a two-time against. So basically, you have to pick against the defending champs or Tennessee, who beat Alabama once and then lost in the SEC title game.
But
Then you're in a
you're not
weird
putting
spot
any
if
of
you're a
those.
committee.
You're not putting a one-loss team ahead of Clemson, though, like an undefeated Clemson.
Well, no, you don't have to worry about it. What I'm saying is there's two. Like, if I think all we're gonna have to worry about is Clemson and the Big Ten winner. That's it. There's
See,
gonna
I
be
think
spots ready
what
for the
makes it
SEC.
interesting though is if Michigan beats Ohio State,
Mm.
because Michigan losing Ohio State, Michigan's not going to have the resume to get in as a one seed or as a one-loss team. But Ohio State has the bias, has like the brand recognition, like the just the preconceived notion of how elite they are.
But then
think
you have to put
Ohio
in two
State
Big Ten
has one.
schools. I don't think they're put in two Big Ten schools over two SEC schools.
Yeah, that's probably true. But you're talking like the TCU undefeated Big 12 champion doesn't have a shot to make the playoff. And
I don't think so now.
I just don't see how that's possible. They run the table, go undefeated in the Big 12. Like there's no chance they're getting let out.
Well, hold on. Let me be clear. If they go undefeated
last year,
here's the problem with this, Matt Green. They're not going undefeated. They still have to go to Texas next week. And I'm just going ahead and penciling that one in. That's where this all dies. They go to Texas. Gary Patterson gets his revenge on those Hypno Frogs, and it's over. And also, the Big 12 title game is notorious for this, of just self-destructing the Big 12. Like, we know that that's going to be on the table. Kansas State all over again in the Big 12 title game. Who wants any part of that if you're TCU?
No, it's possible. But that's my point, is that there are a couple more data points out there. There's going at Texas, especially if they go at Texas, like, that's Alabama's best win to this point. If TCU matches that, they definitely got to jump Alabama. But then also just the Big 12 championship, I feel confident will be a top 15 opponent, maybe even top 10 if it's, I don't know if Kansas State or Oklahoma State can get back into the top 10. But it's going to be a quality matchup. So I don't know. If they're 13-0, you have to put them in the college football playoff, even if it is over a one-loss Tennessee or a one-loss Georgia. I think you're undefeated, winning a major conference. I don't think there's any chance to play.
Committee won't do it. Guarantee you they won't do it. I don't think they'll do it. They see the Big 12 as a Group of 5 school now.
I think that Tennessee has a better argument. If Georgia's a one loss to Tennessee and they're sitting there at the 4-5 argument, like they don't have enough good wins to really justify being ahead of an undefeated Big 12 champion.
They're not leaving out the defending national titles of a one-loss Georgia team over TCU. That's not happening, Matt Green. You're getting in that circumstance. They're not leaving them out. And we all know, like, that's one of those collective groans where we're like, really? Do we all believe that Georgia's not better than TCU? Are we doing this? Are we throwing TCU in here?
But why are we playing the games? You know what I mean?
Well, you didn't play Georgia TCU.
You didn't play that game, but they played an entire conference schedule. Like, they went undefeated. Like, it's, I don't know.
Good guy, Matt Green, putting out his dogs, like not allowing them in the playoff. I like it. See, I'm not like that. I'm not doing that whatsoever. TCU gets in over a one-loss Tennessee that's only losses to Georgia. We have problems, Sonny Dykes. We have problems, Dallas, Fort Worth. We got issues. I want to play all opening day next year. We'll punt Virginia out of here. Let's get TCU in here and beat their brains in. That's how I see it. Matt Green.
But I think you're right. Ultimately, I think it's not going to matter. I think TCU is going to get tripped up probably at some point.
Might be this weekend. We'll see in our pick.
Yeah, it's going to be could definitely see two SEC teams again. Go ahead.
Bryan Harsin fired at Auburn this week. Man, Lane Kiffin's having fun with it. He retweeted an article that Deion Sanders would be a good fit for the Auburn job. Just trolling, as Lane Kiffin does. I still think he's getting the job. I've said for months that Lane Kiffin was a natural fit at Auburn to make the leap. Kiffin versus Saban is what the world needs in the Iron Bowl for the next couple of years. That's going to be a lot of fun. I think that's where they'll go. Hugh Freeze, I think Lane Kiffin's number one in the betting odds favorite. Deion is up there, though. He is in like the top 5.
You said Kiffin was the favorite?
Yes. And then number 2 is Hugh Freeze.
Okay.
But Hugh Freeze just had the long-term extension at Liberty, but apparently that's just for Liberty to protect their behinds in case he leaves. But I don't know. I think either would actually just be slam dunk hires for Auburn. I think both would make a lot of sense. Both have had success against Nick Saban, obviously. Hugh Freeze was the Saban killer. Hugh Freeze would be like the Gus Malzahn hire for them, where they go back to like Gus Malzahn's success at Arkansas State and just being an offensive genius who can trip up Saban every now and then. I think Hugh Freeze would kind of speak to that. But they have a new AD as well. They brought in the AD from Mississippi State, Mr. Cohen, who was an alumnus of Mississippi State. So that's brutal, man. So this week, Mississippi State lost their AD and are to Auburn and are playing Auburn in the same week. That's rough, man, for Cohen to leave this week. I mean, it's a cold-blooded sport, man. But yeah, the last 3 ADs have all left for different SEC jobs, I think, right? Because Strickland's at Florida, and then Greg Byrne is at Alabama. So this is the third straight Mississippi State AD who's left for a bigger job in the SEC. That's rough.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I don't know. So what does your gut tell you about
Lane Kiffin?
Lane Kiffin, that you're I guess you're at the front of the Lane train to Auburn, basically.
I've been
What
at the
about,
front forever. Are you not there? Are you thinking Dion? Are you thinking Hugh? Are you thinking Bill O'Brien? Are you thinking Matt Rule?
Hugh Freeze feels like wasn't there that story when De La Salle had that like 150 game winning streak that some team just like practiced for that game for like a year straight or something. They like prepared or something. Like that's how the Hugh Freeze hire feels like. This is just like 100%. We need someone who can figure out how to beat Alabama.
Yeah.
Which is like, if you can beat Alabama, that's probably a good strategy. In general, you could probably beat a lot of other teams too. But yeah, Lane Kiffin definitely feels sexy. We know they took Tuberville from Ole Miss years ago. So another move like that. I feel like Matt Rule is a name that still feels like there could be something there. I feel like he's got to be a Southeast guy that can recruit and everything.
Matt Rule's a Happy Valley guy. They're not going Matt Rule after going the Harsin route. I think they're going Southern.
I think you're right. But the best thing about Lane Kiffin, like they're obviously hitting up the portal and everything, but Ole Miss hasn't really recruited that well. And it's like not like you would necessarily think with him being like a young, cool coach and everything. Like I think they're near the bottom of the SEC in this current class and in last year's class. Obviously, they're doing a lot in the portal, so maybe that's obviously been enough to make up for it. But I don't know. Lane Kiffin, if Auburn can get him, I think it's a home run. But do we know that Lane Kiffin looks at Auburn as a better job than Ole Miss? Like, I think of Auburn as having a higher ceiling than Ole Miss, but
Auburn's been to 2 national titles in the last decade.
No, that's true, but not quite the last decade,
or a little bit over.
Yeah.
It's
almost a decade since the last one, but
exactly because they had the 2 in relatively short order. But
so Auburn's definitely a higher like stat. They've probably been to 5, 6 SEC titles.
They were just in the 3? SEC title game against Georgia with Stidham. 3 years ago?
2017. 4? So yeah, like 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah. So they've definitely been up there. Ole Miss has never even made an SEC title game, but I don't know. He feel like he's got a nice niche there in Ole Miss. I don't know. He's got a good thing going, but
so did Dan Mullen.
If they can get him but Florida was just a clear head and shoulders ahead of somewhere like Mississippi
I think
State.
Auburn's clear head and shoulders, man. I think people are discounting the Auburn job.
It feels a little closer. It feels a little closer than that. I guess
I think Auburn's a better job than Florida.
No, but I'm saying Auburn compared to Ole Miss as opposed to Florida compared to Mississippi State.
That's fair.
I think that was a clear
That's a big jump.
Like Ole Miss to Auburn. Yeah, I think they are better, but are they better enough to like a lot goes into just leaving. Like you get new expectations once you get to a new place. Like you got to restart the culture and everything that goes into it. Like obviously the albatross that is Georgia and Alabama on the schedule every single year. Like obviously they play Alabama every year right now at Ole Miss, but they don't also have to play Georgia from the East. So I don't know. There's things that go against Auburn, but I mean, I think ultimately the resources, the stadium, the home field advantage, the fan base, like everything that goes into it, like their just desire to be one of the best programs in the country. I would rank it ahead of Ole Miss, but I don't know. Lane Kiffin, if they can get him, that's a home run. But I don't know. Like Bill O'Brien, like is he a realistic guy
I think
for
he gets
this?
the Tech job.
You have said that before, yeah. So
Mhm.
I don't know. He doesn't seem sexy enough for Auburn, honestly.
That's why I think he's perfect for Tech. That man, I feel like, is going to dress perfectly for Georgia Tech. He feels like a Georgia Tech coach.
Yeah, I could see it. Other than the fact that he seems like a good coach, but
Wow.
rim shot,
If I'm Hugh
shot at
Freeze,
the
though,
Tech at the Yellow Jackets.
if I wonder if this is too galaxy brain, but like if you're Hugh Freeze, would you not just hold out for a little bit longer to see what A&M does? More money, bet like you're in the fertile recruiting ground of Texas, better than Alabama. You don't have to put like that. You're the savior, the offensive savior, and Hugh Freeze would actually bring the kind of fun offense
Yeah,
that Jimbo claims to want. Clearly, they have no qualms about doing whatever it takes to win. They're going to spend the money. I think if you're Hugh Freeze, I think I wait. I think I wait on the A&M job.
but I was thinking the same thing about Deion Sanders, though. Like
Mm,
he's got the Texas connections. He just doesn't. He just doesn't fit at A&M. He's just way too
right.
cool for Texas A&M. But obviously, he could go. He could go wherever and just be prime
Is he a
time
dog
and
guy?
do his
Do we
thing.
know? How would he feel about the dog? Is he a dog guy? I don't know.
About I have no idea.
That's a big thing.
Uh,
Are you good with a collie? Like, what's your collie stance? We need to figure that out. I don't know.
these are the important questions when
Mm.
getting the next head
Well, as we
coach.
know, that it's very important. That collie is very important to those folks over there in College Station. I
What
don't know. I think
what
that will
shot do
be
you think?
interesting if Texas A&M opens up, which amazing kind of buyout numbers for that one if it does. But I'm curious to see what's the more intriguing job if Auburn's not filled by then. Who gets the better
Oh,
candidate pool?
A&M is definitely a better job, right? Just because apparently they just have so much damn money,
Yeah.
and just the state of Texas not being in the same state as Alabama. I feel
Mm,
like it's just like a psychological thing, like not
mm.
being the number one team in your state. I feel like that's the difference between Auburn and Tennessee. It's like Tennessee's got Georgia and Alabama every year too, but at least they can be like the big dog in their own state. Like there's something to that. Like Auburn is like you're playing second fiddle in your own state. Like
I don't even think it's second fiddle, man. If you go to Alabama and you talk to, like, I understand Alabama football is legit, but Auburn is not a New York Mets situation. They're not a Los Angeles Clippers. I think it's closer to a 1A, 1B than you're giving them credit for.
oh, I mean, in terms of the population, it's definitely like split
Yeah.
50-50. But in terms of the success on the football
Right.
field, it's clearly a Yankees Mets situation. Like you couldn't describe it any better than Yankees Mets, honestly.
Interesting. All right. Well, let's move on. We got to get into our I don't think we don't need to make our pick on who the hire is going to be because I don't think it's going to happen for a while based on these early returns here.
I think you got to
Um
make a pick. Put it on the board right now.
Oh, I already made it. It's Lane Kiffin. I think it's gonna be Lane Kiffin.
I'm going prime time.
Oh wow, that'd be fun.
Yeah, that would be incredible, honestly, if they got. I would hate it. They'd probably start cleaning up state of Georgia recruiting like Auburn like Auburn does when they're a good program. I think that's the biggest thing with Kirby, the way they've recruited is Auburn is just not getting the players at the state of Georgia that they once did.
I don't think he takes that one. My gut on Prime is he waits out Florida State and Norvell, and he goes the alma mater, and then he waits out Saban. I think ultimately he wants to be the one who replaces Saban. That's my guess.
No. Why would
I'm
he want
going.
to go to Alabama?
I'm.
That's if he goes to Florida State, that's home. Like you don't go anywhere from there.
I don't
I've
know.
heard the
Prime loves
whisperings.
being the center of attention. He does the commercials with Saban. They're cool. If if there
Are
was
they
one
cool
person
though?
who's
Wasn't there some beef this off season?
yes, but that's what I'm saying. Like him replacing Saban, I think he would eat that up. Most coaches, I think, are going to run from that job. I don't think most people want to follow Nick Saban at Alabama. I think it's going to be harder to fill that position than you might think.
I don't know, man.
Can you imagine
As
following the GOAT?
difficult as it is going to be to follow the standard, to meet the standard that Nick Saban set, you go look at the facilities and the players that are on whatever current roster, whatever that happens, the 2028 roster. You look at the recruits they have, it could be a very attractive job. The amount of money they're going to throw at you. I don't know. But I've heard about Florida State is that they just might not be as committed to the NIL stuff, and that can
Well,
kind
that's why
of
you bring in Prime, where he's like, all right, we're going to fix that one. We're nipping
yeah,
this in the bud.
maybe.
Yeah.
So I don't know. If he goes to Florida State, I can't see him jumping for anything else unless he wants to go to the NFL, which he doesn't seem like a guy that would ever want to go to the NFL. He seems like he wants to affect the future, the youths of the next generation, all that kind of stuff.
Go Prime. He's good for the sport. I'm excited to see where he goes next.
Yeah,
I don't want
man.
him to
When he's on TV, I just can't not just be hooked. Like I just want to see what this guy has to say.
100%. I think that's how recruits feel too. Matt Green, we have to get in our pick'em this week. Our week what? What is this? 10? Week 10?
Week 10, sir.
We're already in double digits. The season flies by. Let me just say at the top, because they don't make our pick'em this week, a couple schools should be ashamed of themselves right now, Matt Green. Those two schools who should be ashamed. Kentucky, 2-point favorites on the road at Mizzou. You're only getting 2 points against this terrible Mizzou team. And the South Carolina Gamecocks, the biggest embarrassment of all betting lines you'll see this year, only getting 7 points on the road at Vanderbilt. 7-point favorites at Vandy. What are we doing with the quote-unquote future of the SEC East and the rising stars of the Kentucky Wildcats and the South Carolina Gamecocks? I'm going to go full Black Panther here. Is this your king? Are these your kings? What are we doing here? How is that preseason Will Levis, Spencer Rattler, SEC hype? How is that going?
Too good.
Week 10, 7-point favorites against this Vanderbilt team. Are you kidding me? Get out of here. I don't want to hear anything from South Carolina folks for a long time. Get out of here.
And South Carolina just squeaked into the top 25. They had Missouri and Vanderbilt on the schedule. Like there was a chance they could get down high or low enough, high enough, whatever you want to say, that a loss to Clemson, they might could have stayed in the top 25, like a 9-3 or so. But how many loss they have so far? That was their third loss, right? Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they still have Florida. Like there's some big wins. They had some winnable games. So absolutely wetting the bed last week against Missouri.
Man, well, Matt Green, how is our pick'em looking going into week 10?
All right, to refresh the listeners, Chase Thomas has got a nice healthy lead, 73-29 overall in the season to my 63-39. And then you also have a 4-game lead against the spread, 51-48-3 to my 47-52-3. And then we got Zeus staying strong at 5-5 with his home dog of the week on the season. So see if we can get him back over 500 this week.
I like it. Matt Green, where are we going first this week? I have a hunch.
Where are we going first this week, sir? We are going to Athens, Georgia for the game of the year. And, sir, I might say maybe the biggest game in Sanford Stadium history. You could call it a matchup of number 1 versus number 2. You could call it a matchup of number 1 versus number 3. Mm-hmm. But what it is, in the first time in college football playoff ranking history, is the first time we will have number 1 versus number 1. Number 1 in the AP poll versus number 1 in the college football rankings poll. Georgia Bulldogs, 8.5-point favorite at home versus the Tennessee Volunteers. I'll let you have the first word here. How do you see this one going?
Ooh, this is tough, man. I've been going back and forth on how I want to approach this on the podcast because it's like, do I want to go all out here? Do I want to, how can I phrase this? Do I want to jinx the Vols? Do I want to actually put my name to it? Or do I want to be surprised? Do I want to, because like going into the Alabama game, as you may recall, Matt Green, and our great listeners may recall, I predicted Alabama to lose that game to Tennessee outright. I have driven the drive for 10 all season long for the Vols, thought it was coming. And I said they were going to split one of Georgia and Alabama. People were like, no, they're not doing that. Like that was just the preseason loss where Tennessee getting to 10-2 meant perfect everywhere else, and they couldn't beat Alabama and Georgia. They're gonna have to get the 10 wins everywhere else. Not the case. They already beat Alabama. They going into this one, it's a different feeling. Obviously, it's not at home. That matters. This is in Athens, and this is one that I just Matt Green, Nolan Smith being gone for the year, out for this one. That's huge. I think that's one that, I mean, I'm sure you'll speak to this too, but when you see that one, you're like, okay, feel better about the offensive line this week. I feel better about Hendon Hooker being clean, because that's something we haven't seen yet, is Hendon Hooker really being pressured all the time. And when Hendon Hooker is pressured a lot, he generally speaking will take off. And Graham Cobb had a good stat on that on Twitter today, is that Stetson will generally speaking stand in the pocket and take the huge blow and throw it. And Hendon Hooker is just most likely going to take off when it's bad. And we'll see what happens. Like the fumbles can happen that way. We've seen it this season in that regard. But Tennessee does not turn the ball over really. Like you had the RPO fumble in the Alabama game late in the fourth, and that almost cost them. And that was just a crazy just mental mistake on that one. But by and large, Hendon Hooker doesn't throw interceptions. Knock on wood. Stetson threw 2 last week. He hasn't been peak Stetson as of late. I don't know. Like I was thinking about like how this game has to go for both sides to win. And I think going in, I think even Tennessee fans should admit there are a lot more ways this game goes Georgia's way than what Tennessee needs. So I think Georgia can play a lot of different ways and win this game. I think Tennessee might need to play a certain way to get up. And it's kind of like what last year was, where Tennessee got up after the first and Georgia had to make adjustments, and Georgia wasn't really prepared for. And I think Kirby even said this. It's like, guys, if they're not in shape, they're not going to be in shape for this game. If you're not in shape to this point, we can't get you ready for Tennessee's tempo to this point in the year. Like you're not going to be able to make it. So we'll have to see how that looks, because Georgia hasn't played anybody like this all year. And I think it's kind of like the triple with Army and stuff. We're like, we can practice for it or we can prepare for it, but then it's like in real time, it's there. You can't get off the field. It's a just different element. These defenders are being asked to make so many big time decisions against a better group of playmakers and a more confident group of playmakers than what Tennessee had a year ago. You had Javonte Payton in one of those spots for Tennessee last year. Jalen Hyatt's a totally different kind of guy. Velus Jones is more of the crossing routes, more of the middle kind of stuff. Jalen Hyatt's going to take the top off, and that's not what Tennessee had in the Georgia game last year. I am curious because I don't think Georgia is going to be able to run the ball on Tennessee early. I don't think that's going to be how Georgia beats Tennessee. The way Georgia beat Tennessee last year was James Cook in space, getting him the ball outside the numbers. Like, I don't think they're going to be able to attack Tennessee up the middle. I don't think that's how you beat the Vols. I think you have to attack them through the air, and they're susceptible deep. Bryce Young was picking them apart in that way. That's the way to do it. And I am so curious because I don't know if you saw, like, is AD Mitchell playing in this one? Is it confirmed if he's out or is he in? Do we know for sure?
No, it's not confirmed. I would say he's on the doubtful side
Okay.
though.
So then you look at it and you're like, Lad McConkey's not a deep guy. He's not going to be someone you're looking to deep. Karis Jackson, you would hope, or Blaylock. I mean, you can speak more to this, Matt Green. The guys who can kill Tennessee are the guys on the 2 tight end spots, Darnell Washington and Brock Bowers. And it's going to be a long freaking day for Aaron Beasley and Jeremy Banks to stay with these guys in coverage, and also just the star position. So Wesley Walker's played there a little bit. Nico Slaughter was the one who really came on last week with the pick, with the hard hit on the Kentucky receiver that led to the Juwan Mitchell interception return. Maybe he's the guy. Maybe they figured out something there. How much does Georgia control the game just by Tennessee not having the bodies to stay with Darnell and Brock over the course of several drives and just getting worn down by those two, just being open all the time and being asked to defend them? And then does that open up other stuff for those unproven guys out wide so that they just hit them a little bit at a time with Kenny McIntosh out of the backfield like James Cook last year? Little stuff to Brock Bowers here, little stuff to Darnell Washington there. And then they go for the jugular with something over the top that, I mean, kind of like what Stetson did in the national title where he hit A.D. Mitchell deep and you were like, oh, that's a game-changing bomb there. It's just a backbreaker that he's capable of. I'm curious if they have that guy in uniform on Saturday because Tennessee has those guys. Tennessee is going to hit those big plays. Jalen Hyatt is going to score a touchdown on Georgia on Saturday. Cedric Tillman's still not 100%. We'll see what he was doing. He wasn't really doing much downfield last week in his return, doing a lot of quick inside routes, quick curls. Like he wasn't going deep. He was not the guy we saw pre-injury. Brew McCoy has been kind of quiet of late. Does he get more involved this week? I think the path to Georgia, we'll know if Georgia's going to win this game based on how many 40+ yard plays they hit. If Georgia's hitting stuff deep and Stetson's able to challenge Tennessee deep and put them in a situation where they have to respect Stetson deep and they have to respect the short stuff with Brock and Darnell and McIntosh, I don't think that's a recipe for success for a Tennessee victory. I think the other stuff has to happen. I think they have to go 17-0. I think Stetson has to make a bad mental mistake and the math game goes against them because math is a huge part of Tennessee winning. Is the math game catches up to everybody and you blink and it's like 28-6 and you're like, damn, like our offense can start clicking, but that means we're going to have to get 4 stops in a row or 4 out of 5 stops from Tennessee. And it would be nice if Tennessee turned the ball over, but Tennessee doesn't do that. So it's harder to get those stops. And Tennessee knows that. They know that they're going to win the math game 9 times out of 10 with this offense. And for them not to, they make 1 or 2. It might just take one bad interception, like an interception pick 6 by Keely Ringo or something, mixed with Georgia's offense matching Tennessee back and forth, and they win by 7. Like, I don't see a path to this being a blowout on either end. I think this is close, and this will be close. Well, deep into the fourth quarter last year, the depth wasn't there for Tennessee to keep it a game in the fourth quarter, third quarter even. That's changed. Like the depth is there now, and they're going to be in this game deep into the fourth quarter. It might come down to who has possession last, but I that's what I keep coming back to is Nolan Smith being out and what that means for Hendon Hooker having time in the pocket versus running for his life, like what it was with Jordan Davis and company last year. If he has time in the pocket, we know what he does there. And then Stetson being like old Stetson and what he was in the national title game, taking those deep bombs and showing the other stuff that makes him the multiple or the multi-talented quarterback that we've seen that he has not really shown the last couple of weeks. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. One point I think you made in terms of the 40-yard plays, if Georgia's getting those, I think that's the scenario that Georgia wins big. Like like you said, I think Georgia has kind of multiple ways they can win the game. Tennessee has to kind of play a certain way. Like I think Georgia can we can just go 10 yards at a time, like just first down after first down. Like you've kind of seen a lot of that, like a lot of the short passing game, kind of just getting the ball to your playmakers and letting them make the plays after the catch. Mainly Brock Bowers. And I think that's ultimately what this game comes down to. Like you touched on, Darnell Washington and Brock Bowers are the 2 best playmakers in the receiving game for Georgia, not counting Kenny McIntosh. I think Kenny McIntosh, is the ultimate X factor in this game because I think 4 of Georgia's top 5 or 3 of Georgia's top 4 receivers on the season are not wide receivers. 2 tight ends and then McIntosh in there. So he's been really dynamic in the passing game. It wasn't until Dejon Edwards the last few weeks has kind of come on that the running game has really started to pick up. So last week against Florida, you saw Edwards and McIntosh both almost go for 100. So I think McIntosh, if he's having a good game, I think that's how you know Georgia's going to have success offensively. But I think Georgia's offense is really what is not being talked about enough, period, in this game personally. Like I saw a stat earlier this week that under Kirby Smart, Georgia is 1-9 when giving up 30 points or more in Kirby Smart's tenure. And so everyone's like, oh, wow, this Tennessee, you're not keeping Tennessee under 30 points. It's about to be 1-10. Like Tennessee is obviously going to score 30. But what people don't focus on is that also under Kirby Smart, Georgia is 53-1 when scoring 30 points or more and 41-1 versus Power 5 teams. The one loss actually was to the Tennessee Volunteers in Sanford Stadium. So there is that. But I think not enough people are focusing on the fact that Georgia is number 2 in the country in total offense. Number 7 in scoring offense. Like, this is an elite offense, and Tennessee has, like, they've come on defensively, but they're still, I think, I want to say 26th or so in scoring defense. I think 80 in the 80s in total defense so far this year. So the fact that Tennessee, like, that Tennessee's defense is the outlier here. It's like Tennessee's offense is an elite unit, Georgia's offense is an elite unit, Georgia's defense is an elite unit, and Tennessee's defense is the one that's sitting here. Like, that's who's the game is hinging on, because I think you can expect a good performance from all of those other units in this game. So I go back to the LSU game and the Pittsburgh game, because those are the 2 road games Tennessee's played so far this year. Pittsburgh, it was a long time ago. That game's almost 2 months ago at this point. Tennessee had 13 drives in that game, 3 touchdowns and 2 field goals. Like, that's 8 scoreless drives against Pittsburgh at Pitt, and Pittsburgh also had the 60th ranked offense in the country. Like, and that game goes to overtime, right? If Georgia holds Tennessee to 5 scores on 13 drives, they might win this game by 3 touchdowns. Like, I think that's how much better Georgia's offense is than someone like Pittsburgh. And you even look at LSU, I think you can remember that game gave Tennessee like a solid 13 points in that first half, from fumbling the opening kickoff to going for it in their own territory right before the half. And I think they turned it over at least 1 or 2 more times. I know Tennessee took the punt back inside the 10 or so, but Tennessee had 7 first half drives in that game and only scored 23 points. And their average starting position against LSU in the first half was on LSU's 47-yard line. So they were gifted amazing field position the entire first half and only managed 23 points. And in kind of comparison to LSU to Pitt, Georgia's offense is a lot better than those teams. And if you're getting that many empty possessions, and I also think Georgia's defense is better than both of these defenses. So if you're actually getting stops, which I expect Georgia to actually get some stops, Georgia can sustain drive, like exactly the formula, like we talked about what Kentucky was going to need to do to beat Tennessee. It's like that was going to be Kentucky playing above what they've played all season. So there was no path to Kentucky running the ball and playing keep away and beating Tennessee. They haven't done it all year. There's no reason to think they would do it against a good running defense like Tennessee has. But Georgia has done that. Georgia's been a super balanced attack offensively. Like, I think a lot of people don't even realize that they're 8th in the country in passing yards per game. Like, I think 25th or so in running yards per game. But they're 2nd in the country in total offense, right? Like, we're all obsessed with this Tennessee offense, and they're averaging like 25 more yards a game than this Georgia team. So it's kind of crazy. I feel like all you're hearing is, like, we're playing this up like it's a 2019 SEC championship with LSU versus Georgia, where Georgia actually was Iowa back then, and they were scoring like 25 points a game with the number 1 defense, and they just couldn't score to hang with LSU. And they even held that LSU team to like, I think 34 points or something, which was actually an accomplishment for an absurd offense. But that Georgia's offense just didn't have the firepower to keep up. This Georgia offense actually does have firepower, even though there's questions about the receivers, and that is definitely a weakness on this team.
They're 118th right now in 40-plus yard plays through the air.
And see, and that's big. And that's why I said if they're getting 40-yard plays, like, they might win in a blowout, because Georgia can win this game without even getting the explosive plays, with getting the 7-yard run.
And for reference, Tennessee is number 1 in the country, a distant number 1 at 19.
Yeah, I have no doubt in that. But yeah, and so that's why Georgia, and the fact that this is being played in Sanford Stadium, I think is the ultimate just X factor in this. I think Sanford Stadium is good for a solid 4 or 5 points or so in this line. So I just look at Georgia, and it feels like there's been a lot of bulletin board material, like not to make it like too many intangible aspects of this game. But the other aspect is like we haven't seen Tennessee play a bad game, right? Like
Pitt was bad, and I think the second half of the Florida game was pretty bad.
That's fair, but they've had a lot of really good performances. Pitt is probably the worst one, I would say, because Florida they were up big before
that
Florida
whole
made the
second half
comeback
against
in the
Florida
fourth
was
quarter.
terrible. Yeah.
So yeah, that's fair. But also Pitt is on the road, hostile environment. Like, is Heinz Field anything compared to what they're about to see?
Many people are saying it's the exact same as Sanford Stadium.
Some people say Pitt Panthers have the best home field advantage in college football. People are saying. But no, and I think the home field is so big for this one. So the fact that, I don't know, it feels like Georgia needs this win more than Tennessee, and they're just being counted out by so many people right now. And Tennessee is the talk of the town, the everything. It feels like a game where Georgia's going to come. Like I see this game being played like in the 20s, like I see Tennessee. This could be a potential like a 17-14 halftime score. Like I feel like this is going to be a game where we don't see a lot of scoring until the second half. And I think I'm going to take Georgia to win and cover the points. I'm going to take Georgia. It's going to be a close game, but I'm going to take like a 34-24 type of game. I think Georgia's just going to get is going to get stops defensively. I think Nolan Smith is big. He's bigger in the running game, and Tennessee's running game also gets really underlooked for how good their offense has been this year. But as far as creating pressure on the quarterback, that's the biggest thing Georgia will need to do. But they've had as much success as they've had this year without doing it. So when it comes to a running quarterback like Hendon Hooker, and that's not to sell his passing short, you don't always want to get pressure on that kind of guy, because that's when he can get away and bust a 30-yard run on you. So I tend to think, I kind of go back to 2018 Alabama Georgia SEC championship. It's a game I point to a lot because Georgia was last in the SEC in sacks in 2018 after losing in the national championship, lost a lot of that defense 2017. Very similar to kind of what the 2018, very kind of similar to what 22 is from what they lost a lot on defense. They've been way better statistically in 2022, but that team was last in the SEC in sacks. And when the biggest game of the season came, Alabama SEC championship, they got so much pressure on Tua Tagovailoa. Like, the man was running for his life the entire game, even hurt him in that game, knocked him out of the game. So it's like, I just trust Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann, Will Muschamp to dial up something that Hendon Hooker hasn't seen. Like, I think Georgia's just a dominant defensive philosophy, basically. And at home in Sanford Stadium, I feel like this stadium is just, the environment is just going to be absolutely outrageous. This fan base has been complaining all year about the home slate, not getting home games, whatever. I feel like we've been waiting forever for this kind of environment. And I think Georgia's going to have what it takes to win this game and win it by 2 scores. Give me 34-24, Georgia.
Do you know who the last team to hold Tennessee below 30 points was?
Who's that?
That's the Georgia Bulldogs in November of 2021. That was it.
I should have guessed that.
60 after that one, 45, 48. Let me get this here. 59, 34, 63, 38, 40, 52, 65, 44. 24 would be bonkers at this point, Matt Green. I have no doubt if that's the final number for Tennessee, they cannot win a football game against Georgia that way. That the score could not be there. It's just like the Alabama game where the score has to be outrageous for Tennessee to win. If they're anywhere near the 20s, they're not beating Georgia. My final score for this one, because look, something I think about too with this one, Tennessee's number 2 in rush defense in the conference. I'm curious to see what holds up there. I think Tennessee wins that matchup, and Georgia does stuff in the short passing game with McIntosh, Bowers, and company. But Vols are number 1 in turnover margin in the SEC, and I think that's an under talked about fact for this. Tennessee's been really good at both taking care of the ball, and now they're forcing more and more turnovers. You saw the turnover party against Kentucky on Saturday against better NFL quarterback and Will Levis versus Stetson. Stetson's shown that he is more how can I put this? Like, he's just, if he gets some pressure in his face, like he gets hit with Byron Young a couple times, like the interception possibilities are there. If we were in the fourth quarter and Stetson hasn't thrown a pick, I don't think I like Tennessee's chances. I don't think they're going to win the game. If Stetson has 2 picks and we're entering the fourth quarter, I think Tennessee's probably already up 2 or 3 scores. And Georgia's playing late game catch up with
Yeah,
that one.
I think that's the biggest difference. In
Yeah.
Georgia's
Number
3
7 in turnover margin in the conference. They do not have they're an even 0.
and their 3 probably most underwhelming performances of the year, they were 8-0 in the turnover margin. And it's kind of, it feels crazy to call a 3 touchdown win over Florida an underwhelming performance, but that's kind of where we're at right now with who Georgia is and who
Well, y'all
Florida
have the
is.
same second half issue where it's like, for whatever reason, Florida in the second half is just a different kind of beast.
Yeah, but against Missouri, against Kent State, you saw Georgia turn the ball over and actually keep those teams in the game. So that's definitely alarming. Also, and piggybacking off of your Tennessee Georgia stat, the only team that Hendon Hooker did not throw more. Only game Hendon Hooker since he's been at Tennessee did not throw more touchdowns than interceptions was also last season versus the Georgia Bulldogs. So that was
He also got hurt
in
in that
Neyland
one.
Stadium.
Remember, he got knocked out. So Milton actually went in for that one, if you remember. Hooker was taking a beating.
I think he threw 1 touchdown and 1 pick in that one.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Every other game, he's thrown more touchdowns and picks. Last stat I'll leave you with, against Power 5 competition this year, Tennessee is scoring 41.6 points per game. Georgia Bulldogs, and I even took Vanderbilt out because they're not even Power 5. Georgia Bulldogs against Power 5 competition, excluding Vanderbilt, is averaging 41.4 points per game. So, I mean, these teams, I just feel like a lot of people are sleeping on Georgia's offense. And going up Georgia, a good offense going up against a, improved, but I would say mediocre defense, mediocre to average defense. I think that's the biggest difference right here. Like, Tennessee's great offense is going to win some matchups, win some battles against Georgia's great defense. But I think Georgia's great defense will also win some of those battles. Like, I'd have to worry a lot about Tennessee's defense, especially being on the road. The LSU performance was great, but it felt like LSU beat themselves in the first half of that game. And it was like, it kind of got out of hand at that point. And still LSU was like able to get enough stops to like not let the thing get off the tracks until the second half. I just think Georgia's a better team, and so I'm curious to see how it turns out. I almost picked Tennessee just to like screw with you, just to be like, I think Tennessee's a better team. I can't, but I was like,
we knew you couldn't do that. You're not going into that watching experience picking Tennessee.
No,
you don't want to have any part of you rooting for Tennessee. You're like, I kind of want to be right and make up some ground. You don't want to do that. It's the whole fantasy thing. Like, you don't want to draft your team's rival in fantasy football because it's like, I don't want to be rooting for this guy when they're playing my team. This is insane.
That's fair. But I just, as good as Tennessee's been to this point, I still kind of question how they are as a complete team going on the road. This is just going to be a very hostile environment. And I love how much people are questioning the environment that is Sanford Stadium. Just add fuel to that fire, sir.
Look, here's my prediction. It's going to speak to my final college football playoff prediction, which is I think the way this football season ends is Alabama versus Tennessee in the national title. That's how I think this ends. I think we're getting the rematch of all rematches.
Call it the second Monday in January.
People are saying this is.
You're gonna see someone write that somewhere if it happens. And just know I was the first one to come up with it.
I like it. Trademark Matt_Dave_Green.
But they'll have to get through the boys in Athens, Georgia first. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. Maybe Alabama beats. Maybe they beat Tennessee and Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC championship, and then. But see, that's the thing. They do.
I was going to say, no, Georgia needs to beat Alabama in that situation. If Tennessee loses, they need Georgia to win the whole thing.
But as I was saying, in terms of you getting an Alabama-Tennessee matchup.
Yeah, then it's messed up. Yeah.
I'm not sure if that can even happen, honestly.
It can, because you lose to Alabama in the SEC title game. And then, or no,
so I think Tennessee's got to win this game in order to somehow play Alabama.
I don't think so, or I guess maybe, yeah, that's possible.
But we can get all other.
Well, I'm going to say my pick is 45-42 Tennessee. I think Tennessee wins 45-42.
That will be a barn burner, sir. And I hope you are wrong. But, time will tell. But
Time will tell. Where
we
are we
got
going
10
next?
more
And we're only
games on the
doing 20
slate.
seconds on where we're going next.
Friday night, we got Oregon State, the Beavs, going on the road at Washington. Huskies are a 4.5-point favorite in this one. I kind of went back and forth because I just kept looking at the numbers and I was like, wait, Oregon State's the team that's ranked in the Washington on paper looks like the better team. I think they've had a better offense and a better defense to this point. Both of Oregon State's losses this year, they really just kind of laid an egg and scored, I think, like 14 points, 16 points. In Washington's 2 losses this year, they've just been outscored. They've both been shootouts by one touch, like 40, 48, 40, something like that. So Washington's offense has showed up every single game. This is at Washington. I'm going to take the Huskies to win and cover.
I am also taking the Huskies to win and cover, but I will say, Matt Green, spoopy season may be behind us, but rainy season lives on in the Northwest. High rain precipitation coming into this one, and this high profile Friday night action with the Huskies and the Beavers. Here's the problem: it's going to be pouring down rain. The Huskies like to spin it. They like
That's
to.
true.
They're one of the best passing offenses in this country. They're not going to be able to do that in a rain-heavy atmosphere here against the Beavs. The Beavs love to run the ball. They're totally fine not throwing the football. They're number 11 in Pac-12 in passing offense. The Huskies, though, number 3 in rush defense. Oregon State, number 3 in pass defense. I think this is going to be pretty close. I have the Huskies winning, but I think the Beavs cover. I think this one's super close, and this is a mess on Friday night. I think this will be a fun one to watch late.
That's a tight little spread to win but not cover.
Mm-hmm.
Penix is leading the country in passing yards right now.
Yeah.
So moving on to the Big 12, Texas Tech at TCU. Horned Frogs are a 9.5-point favorite in this one. And I look at Texas Tech, and they've been solid. They're coming along. I don't think TCU is going undefeated, but I just don't think this is. I don't think this is the team. I don't think Texas Tech matches up well with TCU. They're going to have to get in a shootout, and they're not going to be able to do that better than TCU. I think the spread that's a close one, but I'm going to take TCU to win and cover.
TCU fans are going to be miserable with me. Apologies in advance for my keep TCU out of the playoff and everything else. Look, we love you guys. You're a lot of fun, but you're not finishing the regular season 13-0. It's not.
That's not the question though.
Yeah.
You're shitting on a 13-0 TCU team.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably not going to happen. But if it does, man, you better put them in the playoffs. There'll be riots in Fort Worth.
Over an 11-1 SEC team. Let's be real. Man, that's just so dismissive. Number 2 pass defense in the SEC the SEC on the brain. In the Big 12 is Texas Tech, which I think is interesting for this matchup. Tech is dead last though in 40+ yard plays, which is weird. And you would think with the running gun, with the offense being better and how they're playing this year, that they would actually be kind of back to where they were in those peak Leach years. That's not the case, or the Kingsbury years. That's not it. They're a slow and just little by little kind of team when they're scoring. And TCU is first in the country, in the Big 12 in deep bombs. They're the Tennessee of the Big 12 in a lot of ways. Give me the Horned Frogs to win. The loss is coming, but it's not until Austin next week. They survive another week, Frogs.
I scoffed at that, but there is a lot of similarities with the Horned Frogs and the Volunteers this year.
But only one will be in the college football playoff, and they're wearing orange.
I was about to say that could be true. Max Duggan, Hendon Hooker having very similar seasons. So keeping it moving. Wait, you went in that TCU to cover, right?
Yes, TCU to win and cover. Yep.
Baylor at Oklahoma. Sooners are a 3.5-point favorite in this one. This one's going to be on ESPN Plus.
I thought you were going to say the Ocho.
Grinds my gears. Can't watch my Baylor Bears play. I was going to have this one on flashback with Tennessee, Georgia, but no. Both these teams coming, kind of getting back on track, 2 straight wins. But I told you I didn't jump off the Baylor. I jumped back on. I did jump off at one point, but I jumped back onto the Baylor bandwagon. And I just think they're a better team than Oklahoma. Oklahoma's just giving up so many points every game. And I think they're going to see more of it against Baylor. And I don't know. I don't trust Oklahoma.
Are you doing it?
Give me the Baylor Bears. Go on the road. Beat the Sooners.
They had you at Sikkim.
Exactly.
Have they not? How does that work, by the way? How are they allowed to do that? They do the Sikkim too. Is there not a copyright battle between Sikkim dogs and Sikkim bears?
I don't even think Georgia knows that they do the Sikkim, honestly. So I don't think it's registered. Washington does the dogs too with the W. It's like I don't think that's how people talk in Washington. That's how the dogs got there. The Southern twang is how that spelling came to be. But
where's Louis Grizzard when you need him?
There you go. Nice pull.
Yeah. OU is still 12th in S&P Plus. I looked up because I was curious how far they had fallen from where they were in the earlier part of the year. So in ESPN's S&P Plus, Bill Connolly's model, they like them. But Baylor's 15th, so they're right there. Like these are two very even teams. Both very inconsistent. Both kind of not having the year either of us thought they would have. I mean, there was a path to both representing being the two participants in the Big 12 title game. Neither I don't think will make it at this point. But the thing I go back to,
don't count out the Bears, sir. Just 3-2 in conference. Don't you dare.
Okay, there you go. Well, aren't the Sooners also 3-2 in conference?
No, I think they're 2-3.
Do they have 3 conference losses? Okay. The Sooners though are 14-1, Matt Green, against Baylor and Norman, 11-1 in the Big 12 era. I don't know. Oklahoma figured some stuff out last week. I think they'll be okay. Dylan Gabriel's healthy. Eric Gray, old friend, old Tennessee Volunteer friend, has been running consistently for the Sooners this year. I wonder if he regrets jumping ship when he did. That ship's closed, Eric. There's no takebacks. There's no coming back from Oklahoma. No coming back from Norman. Can't do it.
I thought about that about To'o after that game in Knoxville. Like, wonder what that guy's thinking. There's a reason he went to Tennessee to begin with. Like he's got to be jealous of that atmosphere they got going on now.
Absolutely. I'm going OU to win and cover. I think OU's figured some stuff out of. I think they're gonna be fine. Brent Venables has a job for another year.
All right. Not calling for his job just yet. Not after 9 games.
No.
The Oklahoma State Cowboys returning to the Sunflower State for the second straight week. That would be Kansas.
Are they the Sunflower State?
It is the Sunflower State. Everybody knows that, man. Come on.
Okay.
The Jayhawks are a 2-point home dog in this one. And after the performance Oklahoma State put up last week, I'm just positive that they can't play that poorly again. Honestly, that's really what it comes down to me. I can't explain what Oklahoma State, what Kansas State did to Oklahoma State last week, but I think Oklahoma State bounces back. I think Kansas's defense is going to give up a lot of points, and I like Oklahoma State to win and cover.
58, 34, 63, 36, 41, 40, 41, and then 0. You cannot explain what happened to Oklahoma State last week. It's one of the more unbelievable shutout performances. It was the biggest margin of defeat in the Gundy era. But look, Kansas has lost 3 straight, all close ones. But this is not the time you want Oklahoma State following the Gundy worst loss of his entire tenure at Oklahoma State. I think the wheels have kind of fallen off a little bit at Kansas, losing Jalen Daniels for the year. I think Oklahoma State actually wins and wins big. I think they blow them out. And Oklahoma State, not so fast, my friends. I think they're going to be in the Big 12 title game. If you look at their final 4 games, I think they beat Kansas. They beat Iowa State at home. They go to Oklahoma and beat Oklahoma, and they get West Virginia at home to close. I think they finished 10-2 and are just fine. So Oklahoma State, I think, bounces back, and they're fine. Go Pokes.
One thing, Jayhawks are backed into a corner here. 3 straight losses, coming off a bye. I don't know. We could see something, but yeah. I'm going Oklahoma State as well. Keeping it moving, Liberty goes on the road at Arkansas. Arkansas, just the strangest schedule in college football. Just they're like, we don't want to play Power 5 teams out of conference, but we'll play the best that Group of 5 has to offer. Playing Cincinnati, BYU. Now they got Liberty at home. Liberty is a 13.5-point dog at home in this one. I mean, and this is honestly tough because Arkansas, I think they're like the 125th ranked defense in the country or something this year. They're absolutely getting torched. But I feel like they're going to score points on. I think they're going to score enough to win it by 2 touchdowns. So I don't feel great about it. I feel good. Arkansas wins the game. The spread, I could go either way, but I'm going to take Arkansas.
You're taking Arkansas. No love for the Flames.
121st in total D.
Oof. Man, do you think if you're Sam Pittman, do you at least entertain Auburn if they come calling?
No. Sam Pittman's home, man.
Okay.
He's the only person.
You don't interview though if you're Sam Pittman?
You see that compound he's living on in Arkansas? I feel that man, that's his forever house. Like he's never selling that house.
Even after he loses, he's
like, I'm not leaving. I think he will. I think if he gets fired next year, he's just going to live there and live in Arkansas for the rest of his life. I think he's good.
Classic look-ahead spot, though. They get LSU at home next week. So if you're the Hogs, big long-term rivalry there. LSU figuring some stuff out. Easy to overlook the Flames here. But they dropped 52 on BYU, the last the power group of 5 team they played. They won 2 straight. The Flames are injured at QB. They should win this one. This is an embarrassing loss if they drop this one at home. I think Arkansas wins and covers. But I do think Liberty puts up points and you're like, oh yeah, this Arkansas team is leaky. And like you said, this defense gives up yards and points. And Liberty's going to be able to score on Arkansas. So it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but I could see something like 48-36 or something, like 48-32, something like that.
I was about to say 48-36 isn't covering the spread.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I don't feel great about it.
Liberty beat BYU 41-14. Arkansas beat BYU 52-35. So they're getting points scored on them for sure. Locking it in. This next one, we got Texas going to the Little Apple to face the Kansas State Wildcats. Almost called them the Jayhawks. Kansas State Wildcats, 2.5-point home dog in this one. And surely you're saying they just hung 48 on Oklahoma State. At home again, keep the train rolling. Not so fast, my friend. Just for the fact that I can't explain how Oklahoma State played so poorly last week. I almost can't explain how well Kansas State played this past week. Like 48-0, just you're not going to see another performance like that. This just feels, I feel like Kansas State is a better team than Texas. I honestly do. But it feels like just like a snapback to reality, like just a letdown game. I'm going to go against who I think is the better team just for the intangible reason. I think we're going to feel like we have Kansas State figured out now, and they're one of the contenders in the Big 12, and then that's when they drop one. So I'm going to take Texas to go on the road, get the upset. We're also all kind of down on Texas right now. Like, oh, Quinn Ewers, they could win the national championship if he would have stayed healthy. Like, and now he's come back. You're like, oh, maybe we kind of overreacted. Maybe they weren't quite that good. So we're kind of too high on Kansas State, too low on Texas. I think we're gonna kind of come back to the equilibrium, if you will. So give me the Longhorns. Go on the road and win.
Texas is number 6, I think, in S&P Plus here to this point. So the numbers still love Texas, and healthy Quinn Ewers, just an awesome talent. Will Howard's still gonna be under center for this one, right?
I believe so.
Here's the thing. I don't think lightning strike is going to strike twice. I don't even know. I'm going to go ahead and guess without double checking this. I don't think Kansas State's beaten Oklahoma State and Texas back-to-back ever in the program history. I'm going to go ahead and guess that's not been something that's happened in the Mike Gundy.
You're just going to throw out that stat. Who knows if it's true or not?
I'm preparing for the post-Elon world here on Twitter.com.
They have won 5 straight against Kansas State.
They have.
It's been a while if they have beat them both.
I thought this was interesting. From Burn Orange Nation, they said, quote, K-State's offense, their biggest struggle is ranking number 87th, in first down rate, even though the busted drive rate is solid because the Wildcats are a poor third down team, converting only 32%, which is good for 113th nationally. I don't think Kansas State can play when they're behind. I think this is a group that they just got out to a beatdown and they just kept rolling. Like, you don't want to be behind Kansas State. They're just a steamrolling type team. I don't think they're going to be able to do that against this Texas defense. And I think Texas is going to win. I think this will probably be close, but I still think Texas does enough to cover. So give me the Horns to win and cover in this one.
All right, put it on the board. A lot of agreeing I'm noticing so far. Really sitting on that lead over there. Next one, we're going crazy to think. Top 10 matchup here in Death Valley being almost overlooked this weekend with all the hype around Georgia, Tennessee. But that's exactly what we have. We got the Alabama Crimson Tide going into Death Valley. LSU Tigers are a 13-point home dog in this one. So Alabama's won 5 straight in Death Valley. Last time LSU won in Death Valley was actually 2010. But I still can't ignore Death Valley at night, right? I feel like there's still an appeal to it. And LSU's finally getting the offense figured out. Scored 45 points, had over 500 total yards in each of the last 2 games. I'm picking against Alabama on the road because they just have not been the dominant team on the road in the last 2 calendar years, basically. So until they prove that they can beat a good team by a wide margin on the road, I'm going to continue to pick against them. So give me Alabama to win, but I'm going to take LSU against the spread.
Interesting. I am locking this one in. Alabama to win and cover. I think this is actually another blowout. I think people are all buying back in, and the LSU has figured some stuff out. Look, Brian Kelly's going to be fine there, but I think this is still a work in progress, and I think Alabama's pissed off. And if I'm going to put Alabama in the national title, I have to start getting that resume ready, Matt Green, and that starts here on the road in Death Valley. I think they're going to come to play in this one. Alabama's defense. I saw this on Twitter that I thought was really fascinating. They've only given up 15 touchdowns as a whole. It's tied for 6th fewest in FBS. Of those 15, 7 came against Tennessee. So they've really only if you take that one out, 8 touchdowns total outside of the Tennessee game. I think people have just kind of overreacted in a lot of ways about this Alabama team. I think Bryce Young's going to just pick this secondary apart. LSU doesn't have the pass rush to make him have to really work. I think Jahmyr Gibbs will have a big day in this one. No, I don't think this will be as close and as people might hope. I think Alabama is going to be a big game again, maybe even as early as next year. I think that one will be when we get that potential top 5 versus top 5 SEC West Goliath, but I don't think it's this year. And I think this kind of reminds me of LSU or Tennessee Bama last year, where you might see LSU hang around for a little bit, but year one with Kelly and the guys they don't have enough to keep it close long term with the Tide. So give me Alabama to win and cover.
I will say it's not just the Tennessee game, though. You got the A&M performance at home. You got at Texas, including losing to Tennessee. So I mean, there's been a lot of chinks in the Alabama armor as of late. So we shall see on that one. Keeping it moving, we got Clemson going to South Bend. Notre Dame Fighting Irish are a 4.5-point home dog. Several home dogs on this sheet today, but they are not the home dog. I'm very worried about Clemson, their quarterback situation. I guess it's DJ Uiagalelei starting this one, but I mean, how is there a plan to play 2 quarterbacks? You'd have to think that you're probably going to want to get totally blanking on the
Klubnik.
Klubnik's. You're going to get him some reps probably early in this game and just see who does have the hot hand. I don't know, but I mean, Dabo's also feels like he's kind of walking on eggshells and not wanting to disrupt his quarterback's psyche and everything too. You have to worry about, if this is a college ball playoff team, you got to figure out who's the guy that can actually win a college ball playoff game for you. So I am worried about Clemson going into this one, and I feel like it's going to be a close game, but Notre Dame just doesn't have the firepower to really challenge Clemson. Like, they're not scoring more than 14 points on Clemson. As far, like, I don't know that Clemson scores 20, but Notre Dame's not going to score enough to win this game. So give me Clemson to go on the road, win and cover.
Yeah, I think people want to make this interesting. I've seen a lot of people give like, "Oh, Notre Dame, they beat Syracuse last week. This team lost to Stanford at home. They lost to Marshall at home. This is not the Notre Dame team that beat Clemson in that memorable showdown in South Bend a few years ago. Not the same situation whatsoever. I think people are missing the mark here, which coincidentally was the last time we really saw DJ Uiagalelei show out. Where
I was about to say that he actually played well in that game. Played great in that game.
Yeah, and Notre Dame's running back said, "quote We're just going to run at you. You're going to have to stop us, and if you're not stopping us, we're just going to do it until the game is over." Notre Dame is 32nd in S&P Plus, and Drew Pine in his first 3 starts completed over 70% of his passes. Last 3 under 50%. He completed 9 passes in that win against Syracuse. It's not happening.
Bad?
It's pretty bad. Like, this Notre Dame offense still stinks. Clemson, death, taxes, and Clemson regular season victories. Give me Clemson to win and cover.
All right, put it on the board. And then keeping it moving, what was once one of the great rivalries in college football, I would argue hasn't been relevant. At least since Ja'Cory Harris was there or something? Like, I don't know. Like, what was the last time?
Francois.
Yeah, I mean, probably not even, because Miami wasn't any good then.
True.
I mean, you're probably having
Brock
to go back
Berlin.
to maybe the Chris Ricks. Yeah, maybe the Brock Berlin days or so, when people actually cared about this.
Well, part of this is they don't do it on the opening weekend anymore. What are we doing? Why is this game happening now? This was something that we grew up with. They used to always start early. Like, this was to kick things off, to get you into the college ball mode, was Miami, Florida State. This should be for week 1. What are we doing?
Yeah, I feel like it was always Labor Day weekend. Sometimes on that, like, Sunday too. Like,
yeah, it was Sunday or Monday, I remember.
Yeah.
Bring it back.
Miami's a 7.5 point home dog in this one, and it's crazy to think. Like, I don't even like Florida State this year, right? But, like, the last 6 games, like the first 2 games, I think were against, I don't know, Southern and some cupcake. They scored like 70 points, 30 points in those 2 games. Last 6 games, they're averaging 19.8 points per game offensively, which is just not good. That's not good in the NFL, averaging 19 points a game offensively. So even worse in college. They're allowing 26.7 points per game in those last 6. This is just a really bad team. Like, I'm not a huge fan of this Florida State team. Jordan Travis has looked really good at times, but still a little inconsistent. But Miami, I'm more picking against Miami than anything else. So give me Florida State. I think Florida State can get into the 20s, maybe into the 30s. Like, I don't think Miami can score more than like 2 touchdowns in this one. So give me Florida State to win and cover. I'm picking a lot of teams on the road. I'm not going to do well. I just know all of these aren't going to win.
This is how I was last week, where I didn't feel great about it. This week, though, here we go, Matt Green. A lot of momentum in the Miami program. They steal Cormani McClain from Florida right out from under him. Out of nowhere, the 5-star corner. Big win for Mario Cristobal's staff. It might be Jake Garcia. He's gotten the most first-team reps this week at quarterback. So I don't know if
they're talking about playing like 3 quarterbacks in this one.
But it is at Miami, correct? This is a Miami home game. Raucous atmosphere.
Which means what? We're going to have like 5,000 people at this game?
If we're lucky, man. But Jordan Travis, I think he's been slept on because he's at Florida State this year. Jordan Travis, if he's having the kind of season he has in a lot of other programs, you put him in Ole Miss right now. Substitute Jackson Dart for what Jordan Travis has been doing. You're getting the Matt Corral treatment. You're getting Jordan Travis should be in the Heisman conversation. Second highest graded quarterback in the Power 5 this season at 91.3. I don't know. I think Jordan Travis has been awesome. He did a bunch of awesome stuff against Tech last week. He's kind of being forgotten about with this Knowles team, but I think this is one where, and this one's going to hurt. I think Miami wins, and they're my home team of the week. I'm giving the Canes to bounce back here and win at home in this rivalry.
Home dog, put it on the board.
Very even rivalry too. I think they're only like one game separating them all time.
Is that right?
Mm.
Moving on with our last one in the pick'em, we got the Demon Deacons going on the road. NC State is a 5-point home dog. This is your home dog of the week here, sir. I was on the NC State bandwagon to start the season. You know, they're my preseason ACC champ. Definitely jumped off the bandwagon. So they're no longer my wolf pack. But their only losses this year were close losses to Syracuse and Clemson. Wake Forest has actually won 4 of the last 5 in this series. But NC State has won 14 straight home games. I don't know where that streak is on the active streak, but I think that's got to be at least top 5. You got a 14-game home winning streak. That's got to be up there. And in spirit of Chase Thomas, we'll say it's the 4th longest streak in college football right now, if we're just making up stats.
Yeah, I like it.
But 14 straight wins at home. I'm just not a believer in this Wake Forest team, really. I'm glad these two teams are playing each other after the rankings came out this week. Like both of these teams are not top 25 teams. So I'm glad one of them is going to beat the other and knock them out of the rankings. And we can stop pretending like Clemson has 3 wins over ranked teams. Like it's an impressive resume. No, they have wins over 20, 21, and 22. Like those aren't, yeah, sure, they're top 25 teams, but it's not an impressive resume. But I say all that to say the NC State Wolfpack is going to win this game and cover. So give me the Wolfpack. Home dog of the week.
Ooh, home dog of the week. I want to go with you, but I kind of feel like we need to disagree. Wolfpack number 1 in scoring defense in the ACC this year. Wake Forest is number 2 in scoring. NC State obviously down Devin Leary. But man, those passing yards per attempt without him are ugly. They're down to 6.4 yards per attempt. Just a different team without our guy, Devin Leary. That being said, something ain't right about the 2 ACC champions from a season ago. Many are wondering who won the Coastal, who won the Atlantic. Was it Pitt? Was it Wake? We'll never know who was who. We just know the 2 met in the ACC title game. I think NC State bounces back here. I don't think we just have this end of just luck. Just a sad end. No Devin Leary. There's no fight. They just die. I think they figure some stuff out. I think this defense gives Wake some problems. And I think NC State wins and covers in Wake.
All right. Put it on the board. This is at home. This is at NC State.
Or at NC State, excuse me.
One thing to notice, to focus on, they are coming off a long week here. So they had a Thursday night game with Virginia Tech. So they got a couple extra days to prepare for this Wake Forest offense. So this NC State defense, that's really the lone bright spot about their team this year, is that the defense has been solid. So yeah, I think they'll have this game played in the 20s, maybe even the teens if NC State has their way. So yeah, give me the Wolfpack as well. And that's all we got, sir.
I like it. And then again, reminder to the good folks of Kentucky being 2-point favorites on the road at Mizzou, and the South Carolina Gamecocks being 7-point favorites at Vanderbilt. Don't let the national folks let you forget that. Don't let South Carolina fans and Kentucky fans forget that, folks. That's where we're at with those 2 programs. But we'll see what the pod looks like on Sunday. It might be World War III. I don't know. Like, I hope it doesn't end on a controversial call. That would be brutal for the pod's future. I don't know what we do there if it goes in favor of one of us in that particular situation. If it's like, what if it's a hobnail boot situation? What if it's another Hail Mary ending? I think this game ends in a crazy fashion. I think we're going to see something crazy. I mean, it'd be amazing to do that in the same year that you did that with Alabama, but I think this one's going to be another just nail biter, insane ending. I think
the best thing for the pod is clearly a Georgia win.
Okay.
Because then if Georgia loses, like there's no real route to getting to the college football playoff. It'll kind of have a 2020 vibe to Georgia. Like Georgia ended up the season like I think 7 or 8 in 2020. It's like you would have thought they fell off the face of the earth. Like the way people talk, like they just kind of got left for dead and no one really cared about it. It's like they're still a good team, but yeah, they're not really relevant. Like this, if Georgia loses this game, there's no real path to getting in the playoff. Whereas if Tennessee loses, we still have this path, this storyline of can they get in without winning the conference or without even beating the SEC championship. I think there's a lot more there. So I think we can all agree. Let's hope that Georgia wins this game on Saturday.
Can't do it. Go Vols by 90 on Saturday in Neyland.
Also for our YouTube watchers, this is as is tradition.
Right.
Georgia Tennessee week, rocking my Rocky Stopped shirt from back in 2011 when the Bulldogs and Isaiah Crowell and company came into Knoxville and got ourselves a win. Great moment for me and my brothers being in Knoxville. So this is brings me good luck week of Georgia Tennessee game.
Let's hope not. America's team coming into Athens on Saturday, full speed ahead with the most fun offense in college football. Offense over defense every day of the week. Falls 45-42. Mark it down. Done deal. Boom, boom, boom.
Put it on the board.
Put it on the board. Get him out of here. Matt Green, I will talk to you maybe on Sunday.
Maybe.